What is up, guys? So today we're going to talk about rattling in a prison cell. If you don't know what rattling is, it's detoxing from heroin. And back when I first started getting locked up, my local jail was a triple cat A maximum security prison. And here's me, little old shoplifter, stuck in the middle of a violent, brutal, Serco privately run triple cat A prison. So I'm going to tell you what it was like back then. They didn't give you no Subutex, methadone, they just threw you in a cell down the lower medical in Doncatraz, and yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about today. So, I'll set the scene. You've been in a police cell for 2 or 3 days, no sleep, no food, feeling sick, really ill, you're exhausted, and you're put you on the prison bus, you get to Doncatraz, which is your local prison for me, and you're going in there, and because it's a triple cat A prison, you're strip searched as soon as you get there. They used to have Alsatian dogs that would follow, if you were getting moved from wing to wing or going on a visit, anywhere you went, you had to get strip searched and then escorted by a screw with an Alsatian. And when you first get there, you've been in the cells a couple of days, you're rough as a badger. You get in there, the first thing they do, strip search you. And, you just can't be arsed. You just want to get it over with. There's tramps coming through there, so it stinks like mouldy feet. And you've got that rattling smell, like a musty smell. It's horrible. And then they strip search you. Your knobs all shriveled because you're cold and rattling. And it's embarrassing. You have to turn around, pull your bum cheeks apart, bend over. And then they put you through reception. You have to sit down there for hours while everybody's, laughing. Everybody looks healthy and fit, and you're there like scruffy, skinny as oak, ravished from drugs. And then eventually they'll send you up onto the wing. But if you're a heroin addict, back then they used to put you down the lower med. You would see a nurse, and she'd just say, "Oh, there's no we can do. You're just gonna have to go through it. We'll put you on." I think they gave you Melorol to start with, and then they changed it to Brittle Effects, and then years later they brought in methadone and Subutex. But back then, Melorol did nothing. All they did was, like, when you stood up, they just made you dizzy and pass out. That's pretty much all they did. And then they'd take you up onto the wing, or should I say down to the wing, because it's like underground, the medical wing. And they'd take you up, you'd be walking down this long corridor, freezing cold wind blowing at you. And then you'd get to this lift, go in this lift, and everybody's miserable. It's all quiet. Everybody knows they've got weeks of misery, detoxing. And then they'd go down into the lower med. It's like a dungeon. And when you walk into it, the one thing I will say about it, it was always warm, which was nice when you're detoxing. You need to, because you're freezing cold. So you appreciate the warmth. And if I remember right, you would walk in and there would be a row of cells, like maybe 10 cells, and then there'd be a dorm, like a shower room, and then another 10 cells. So they would have like 10 double cells on each side, and then a dorm in the middle would fit probably like 20 people in there. And I've been in all of them, I've been in the cells, I've been in the dorm, and the cells were, they used to have a radio built into the wall, was always been, never worked, just been smashed many times over. And then right in the top corner, they had a little telly, but it was like in a plastic box, so you couldn't switch it over, you couldn't turn it up. So it was just the same channel. You could ask the screw to turn it over, but, they'd moan at you, say, "Oh, this buzzer's not for turning your telly over, it's for emergencies." So there was no point having it there, but it was something to look at, I suppose. And that was the cells. And then in the middle they had the dorms with about 20 people in, and everybody in there is rattling, everybody's miserable, everybody's farting and coughing, and it's like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. And all you want to do is get some sleep, but you can't. And that's what it's like on the lower med, and you just have to go through it for weeks on end. And there's always a Billy bullshitter telling the story. I remember one, talking just a quick one about Billy bullshitters. I remember one that made me laugh. We were all sat there, and I was back into the rave back then, and I just got a new tape, and it was James Brown is dead. I don't know if you've heard it. It's a tune. He goes, James Brown is dead. Da-na-na. So I was telling this lad, saying, yeah, I've got a new tape. James Brown is dead. And quick as a whip, Billy Bullshitter, he says, oh yeah, I've got the remix. James Brown is still alive. I was like, fuck off. And I never actually checked. I should probably Google it and see if he was telling the truth, but I don't think he was. And yeah, and I remember once somebody had a shit in the showers, and you would think, like, why would someone do that? Why would somebody have a shit in a communal shower used by everyone and like just not clean it up? I mean, first of all, why would you have a shit in a shower? But secondly, if you did, why would you not clean it up? But there's people like that in prison. They just want to see the world burn. You know, they know if they do that, it's going to cause loads of tension. People are going to be angry and fighting, and they know they know that's what's going to happen. That's why they do it. That's how they do their time. They just want to fuck with people. You know, they just, like I said, they just want to see the world burn. But someone had a shit in the shower, and there was a big thing about it. And I remember I used to take in. I was on Valium back then. It took me about 2 years to fucking blag the doctor to put me on Valium. I eventually got put on them. And I didn't take them on the street, so I just lined all my the tracky bottoms, you know, where you put where the drawstring goes. I would just line that with Valium. And I worked out, like, if you wanted like 20 minutes sleep, you had to have like 60 mil of Valium, just for a little bit of sleep. And I took a load in with me, and there was a guy on the wing, and he was a big name. I can't remember who it was, but he was well respected. And he come over to me. He says, "Oh, you sorted some of them Valium out." He says, "I'm getting a visit later, and I'll sort you back." And usually I'm like, "Nah, you're all right, mate," because you know everyone's on a visit later, but he never comes. But one of my mates, Keego from Staying, he came over. He says, "No, he's solid. You know, he's a good lad. He'll look after you." So I said, all right then, fair enough. So I've gone to the cell. I says, I'll get you on bang up. So I've got, I can't remember how many, probably about 4 or 5. And he sent the cleaner to the door, because the cleaner is always at his cell. So I've give them to the cleaner, and I give him one for taking them. And the next morning, he's come charging over. He says, you're not getting a note off me. I says, what are you on about? He says, you didn't send me a note. I says, I fucking sent you tablets with the cleaner for you and your pad mate, because his pad mate was a boxer, you know, he was a tough guy, and it's always good to have those people on your side. And he says, well, I didn't get him. I says, well, you want to fucking go and see him, because I gave you him, and I even gave him one for taking it. And anyway, he went to see him, and as I was walking past the cell, I just seen the boxer fucking lunging at him, so they filled him in. But I don't know why do people do that. I don't really get him one for taking it, but you know, they're just not enough. He's ended up caning them all himself. But yeah, the lower med, it was a brutal existence. There's always that rattling smell, you know, everybody's miserable, everybody's upset. And there was a running joke, because when I come into prison, usually back then, I was skinny as out, really skinny, like dangerously thin. I was so thin that the screws were that concerned. They put me on milkshakes, you know, the ones full of calories, what bulk you up, and like meal replacement things. They put me on them because I was so skinny. And there was a kid on there, and there was like a running joke, and he said, oh, why did Paddy not go to the disco? Because he had no body to go with. That's how skinny I was. But I do put weight on when I'm in prison, you know, and the transformation is amazing. Like when you see people come in and you get your photo took for your ID card, and you're like gaunt, like, and then like 6 months down the line, they're all chubby and looking healthy, and it's just a crazy transformation. But yeah, the lower med in Doncatraz, like I say, it's I think it's a resettlement prison now. It's still a prison, but it's not a Cat A anymore. I don't know if I think it's still run by Serco. And like I said back then, there was no medication. They gave you Melorol, which did nothing. I remember once I stood up, and I can't remember passing out, but I stood up quick, and I just went so dizzy, and bump, I was out. And then I woke up in my cell. I was like, fucking, how did I get here? And that's because of the Melorol. So they changed them to brittle effects, which I don't even know what they are. But I think there was orange pills, I can't remember, but they didn't do it either. And then they started bringing in methadone and Subutex. And I remember loads of lads put complaints in, put claims in, you know, saying unnecessary suffering. Like if someone comes to prison, you need to attend to their needs, and going through a detox is unnecessary suffering if there's a way to cure it. And everyone put theirs in, but I couldn't be bothered with mine. I just said, fuck it, can't be arsed, so I just sacked it. And everyone got thousands of pounds and I got no. But yeah, it was a grim place. I think back at those times now, and it was like such a foreboding, dark, miserable place. There's always someone fighting, there's always something going on. I remember one kid from Donny, we was all watching the telly, and there was a couple of gypsies. Apparently you're not allowed to say gyppos anymore, so there was a couple of gypsies, and one of the Donny lads, he was a YO, he came in and just turned the telly over, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm turning it over." "And what?" So this gypsy's gone over to him, and he says, "Oh yeah, mate," boom, fucking slugged him and cut all the inside of his mouth. And usually, like, if that happens and there's all Donny lads together, they'll do something about it. But you know, he brought it on himself. You don't do things like that. That's just disrespectful. Like, you know, if somebody's getting bullied or someone's got a problem, then the Donny lads will stick together. But you know, if you're going around doing things like that, then unlucky, unlucky, mate. But he kind of deserved it, and he didn't do it again. And I remember the gypsy said to him, he said, "You've had your licks. You've had your licks, now sit down." And he was going, "Oh, you've cut all my lip, I need stitches." And that's the brutality of prison, you know. If you act the fool, if you go looking for trouble, you will find it. But anyway, that's the Lower Med, Doncatraz, really miserable place back then. There was always, the cells were disgusting, the showers were cold, and bad, miserable times. But yeah, that's the video for today. If you like this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Mange too.